is being recorded. Please indicate if this is your first time of attending the Access to Justice Board meeting. Please indicate in the chat your name, your preferred pronouns, and any other information you would like others to know. But we welcome everyone and thank you for attending this meeting. We are going to start with, because we have new board members, we're going to actually start with some introduction. We have new board members that are joining us today. So we're going to do some formal introductions of the new board members that are joining us. Terry, could you take that for us? Sorry.
Sure. We have 3 of our 4 new board members joining us. Bryn Felix, Vanna Singh, and Carnissa Lucas Smith. So Bryn, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bryn Felix, and I'm General Counsel at Peninsula Community Health Services. Very excited to be joining the board. Thank you all.
Thank you. Vanna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Vanna Singh. I'm from Tacoma, Washington, and I am with Tacoma Healing Awareness Community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Carnissa.
Good morning. I'm Carnissa Lucas Smith. I am a public defender here in King County.
Great. Thank you. We have one more board member who will be joining us next month, Jane Smith from the Colville tribe.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Now, July minutes has been circulated ahead of time, sent to everyone by email. Does anyone have any additions, any need for changes to the minutes? In the absence of that, a motion to approve the minutes. That was
So moved.
All right. Thank you, SP. Move. Who's second? Is Sar second?
Okay.
All right. All in favor, aye. Thank you. Thank you. Unanimously approved. All right. Let's move on to the next issue on the agenda. It's always an honor for us to welcome any of our law school deans, and we're so grateful to have in our midst today Dean Anthony Verona that is joining us to talk about the Seattle U law. So we're grateful to have you in our midst. Dean, take it away. It's up to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adewale. Can everybody hear me? Wonderful. It's such an honor for me to get to join you this morning and to get to know some of you. I know that I have already met some of you and have been very honored to get to make your acquaintance. I am thrilled to succeed our Dean Emerita Annette Clark as Dean of this great law school, Seattle University School of Law. Dean Clark is a champion of access to justice and was a dean that led by example and action in her visionary leadership of our law school and social justice and access issues, as you all know. Dean Clark's legacy, in fact, was a big attractant to me for this deanship. In fact, Seattle University School of Law is a regional and national leader in access to justice, DEI, and anti-racism work. And all of that drew me to say yes to this deanship offer over others across the country. So I am truly very, very thrilled to be in this new role. I believe very much in the impactful and important work you all do, because I know firsthand how life-saving and influential it is in the lives of so many Washingtonians who need and rely on your services. I was born in Cuba. My family immigrated into the United States when I was 3 years old. We settled in Newark, New Jersey, and were allowed to leave Cuba with only the clothes on our backs and almost nothing else, as is true with for so many other new Americans. We initially did not have our own home, and so lived in an attic in a cousin's house. We eventually got our own apartment, but we were so poor that we could only afford to heat half of it. And all of that heat for the entire living space came from the side of the kitchen stove. The windows were so old and drafty that we would staple garbage bags onto them to keep the cold air out. And in the blisteringly cold and gusty New York area winter weather, the windows would inflate and deflate like sails on a boat. My parents ended up first renting and then owning a small bodega with a butcher shop in the Ironbound section of Newark, New Jersey. And I would work at the store on weekends and holidays. The bodega was a melting pot, immigrant, working class, and working poor community center of sorts in Newark. And our customers were comprised of Cuban, Puerto Rican, Haitian, Portuguese, and Brazilian immigrants for the most part. And many of them came to the store for information, for survival food, and as is common in immigrant families, I became the family translator and would often accompany relatives and family friends to various government and social services appointments when I was very young. The translation often turned into advocacy in no time, again, as often happens with immigrant children. So I saw firsthand and experienced firsthand how difficult it is to be a new American. And that was several decades ago, many decades ago, I should say. I'm 55 now. And in many ways, it has gotten much, much harder. My parents persevered and lived and achieved their form of the American dream, putting my brother and me through our schooling as first-generation college students. Then they retired to Miami, where they lived out their lives. They've recently both passed away, but very happy to be here in this country. My career before entering law teaching was a mix of government and nonprofit lawyering with large law firm stints. I started at the Federal Communications Commission as an enforcement lawyer and then was recruited by Mintz Levin and Skadden Arps into their communications practice groups. While in private practice, I became the lead pro bono counsel to the Human Rights Campaign, which, as you know, is the nation's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization. After a few years of leading a lot of its outside legal work, I was recruited to launch the legal team at HRC as its first general counsel and legal director. It was at HRC where I started teaching as an adjunct professor at Georgetown, which then led me to being hired as a tenure track professor at Pace University in New York City. And after 3 years at Pace, I was recruited by American University Washington College of Law, where I earned tenure and a promotion to full professor, served as academic dean and vice dean, and taught for 14 years. In 2019, I was recruited to be dean at the University of Miami School of Law, where with my faculty and staff colleagues, we accomplished a great deal over my 23-month deanship, most of it during the height of COVID. Then early this year, I was offered this deanship and could not say no. The social justice and public interest mission of this law school, so centrally rooted in our Jesuit Catholic mission, is my own DNA, not only because of my experience as a working class immigrant from several underrepresented communities, but as someone who himself is Jesuit educated. I was fortunate to attend Boston College and Georgetown and benefit from the Jesuit pedagogical directive of Cura Personalis, the education of the whole person in service both to them and to the world. So I cannot underscore enough how happy I am in this new role. I know that Dean Clark gave you a very detailed update on Seattle U Law's access to justice efforts at her briefing to you in February, so I will not repeat her excellent presentation, which I viewed last night on your YouTube channel. What I will do is provide you very briefly with an update on some of what Annette shared so that you will have the latest of access to justice news from Seattle U Law. First, you may recall that Dean Clark told you about our joint pipeline to legal education initiative with UW and Gonzaga and LSAC at Heritage University in Toppenish. As Dean Clark said, The pilot program was looking forward to around 40 students, juniors and seniors at Heritage, welcoming those students, almost all Native and Latinx students, to immerse them in law, to give them a taste of legal education, and encourage them to consider law as a career. Dean Clark told you that she hoped and expected that it would be a great success, and I'm here to tell you that really, thanks to Dean Clark, primarily, and many other colleagues, the Heritage Pipeline program exceeded all of our expectations and was a tremendous success, with the students telling us that the experience was life-changing for them. I will share that I had the honor of teaching the Heritage students a mock law school class on Loving versus Virginia with my colleague here, Professor Daniele Evans. I have taught Loving for many, many, many years. And these Heritage students were the absolute best students I've ever taught in terms of reading the case carefully, marshaling the facts and arguments, and not only mastering the case, but thriving at being law students. So we hope to have a second year at the Heritage program next summer. And as Cesar Torres and others know, we are in discussions to leverage our Flex JD program, which is our hybrid JD program that's mostly online, with actual students right now based in Central Washington and other legal desert areas, into leveraging that program into welcoming a lot of these Heritage students into the legal profession. So we know that there is a huge legal services desert, particularly in that area of Central Washington, and are very, very hopeful for making the Heritage program an oasis that grows and grows and grows and bears fruit in what had been that desert. You also heard from Dean Clark that we are looking forward to our Public Interest Law Foundation auction and gala. We were looking forward to it this past spring. Well, thanks to Assistant Dean Cindy Young and many other colleagues, the PILF auction and gala was a record-breaking success that raised so much money for our students, our public interest students, that we were able to fund every single student access to justice and public interest placement that was submitted for consideration. That is unusual across the nation with respect to these PILF auctions. Some other news items since Dean Clark's presentation are these. In the spring, we welcomed 7 new lawyers into the outstanding incubator program led so ably by the Access to Justice Institute at Seattle U Law, providing support and mentoring to solo and small law practices, most of which provide low-cost access to legal services. Our low bono program is still going strong. In June, 2 of our students were awarded Justice John Paul Stevens Public Interest Fellowships, allowing 2 second and third year students, Stephanie Lowry and Madeline Powers, to devote their summers to high impact access to justice work. In July, our brilliant associate director for the Access to Justice Institute here at Seattle U Law, Lily Sue, and our head of bar success, Isabel Freitas Perez, won an 18-month grant from the Professionals in Legal Education Developing Greater Equity, or PLEDGE Fellowship, to take a close look, a deep dive at making the bar exam more equitable and just as a tool for assessing attorney competence and licensing. Speaking about attorney licensing, also in July, I had the honor of accepting Chief Justice Gonzalez's invitation to join Justice Raquel Montoya Lewis as a co-chair of the Washington Supreme Court's Attorney Licensure Task Force, which is looking at whether we should retain our current approach to attorney licensure in Washington or move to a new approach to competence testing with alternatives. This work is extremely important, given all that we know about the disparate manner in which the traditional bar exam affects first-generation immigrant, BIPOC, and other minority communities. So we are looking forward to doing the important work that we need to do in order to take that close look, and if necessary and possible, recommend serious reforms. We welcomed a richly diverse entering law school class last month, retaining our record as the most diverse law school in the Pacific Northwest and one of the most diverse law schools in the entire country. 37% of our 1L students are BIPOC, 32% are first-generation students, and 28% identify as being in the LGBTQ+ community. These are extraordinary numbers and a testament to our wonderful admissions team and faculty and staff. We welcomed a superbly diverse new class of faculty last month as well, which included the return of Professors Richard Delgado and Jean Stefancic, who you know are godparent scholars of the critical race theory movement. Last month, we also were thrilled with the news that Professor Delgado was included in the ranking of the top law scholars by citation on Google Scholar. He is in the top 10 and the #1 scholar of color in the nation, and the institutional affiliations in the top 10 should make Pacific Northwesterners like all of us proud. They read something like Harvard, Harvard, Yale, Harvard, Stanford, Chicago, Harvard, Yale, Seattle University. So some of you know that I received, some of you received my day 1 preliminary vision message on July 1, and we will be publishing my full decanal vision very soon. Suffice it to say that my vision for this new deanship is to build on the many strengths that we already have at Seattle U Law, to lean into our Jesuit Catholic mission and values around social justice, and to deepen our commitment to access to justice and access to law school specifically, and to achieve greater heights of prominence and effectiveness nationally and internationally, creating partnership and new connections across Seattle, throughout our region, and around the world. Along those lines, I have already spoken with some of you about some of these preliminary ideas around leveraging the Flex JD program so that we establish much tighter ties to the region, address the legal desert problems that we have throughout this region, and I look forward to partnering with you on those efforts in the months to come. Finally, as you know, our brilliant assistant dean for the Access to Justice Institute, Cindy Young, has decided to return to practice at the end of next month, or the end of this month. Poor Cindy, I'm trying to convince her to stay much, much longer. Cindy has served our law school and the Access to Justice Institute here in simply extraordinary ways. She is an exemplary leader and administrator, and I will personally miss her greatly, even though I've only worked with her for a very short amount of time. So we wish her well, we wish her Godspeed, we thank her, and we are looking for her successor. And of course, I would very much appreciate, particularly from this group of VIPs and Access to Justice, your help in finding someone great to do the impossible task of filling Cindy's shoes. So thank you all very much. This is an honor for me to join you, and I hope to join you in many, many future meetings. So thank you very much, Mr. Adewale, and I wish you all very well.
Thank you, Dean Verona. Any questions or comments for the Dean? I want to say, Cindy, that we're really going to miss you. You have been a pillar of support for the Access to Justice movement in our states, and you are everywhere. I would literally find you everywhere where access to justice issue is on the table. You're always there. And Dean, thank you so much for coming and for talking to us. We really appreciate the relationship and the collaboration with Seattle U. Many Seattle U are on this screen. Many alumni of Seattle U are on this screen because of their hearts and their commitment to the cause, because of what they got from that very good school. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you. You can stay or you can decide to hang out with us a little more.
I will stay for a few more minutes and then I will go to my 10:30 meeting.
All right, thank you. Now we go to ATJ Board Leadership Transitions, and Terry Price is going to lead us in that conversation.
Thank you, Francis, and I echo your comments. Thank you, Dean Verona, for coming and presenting to us, and thank you, Cindy Young, for all that you have done for the community. So there is a mystery gavel that Francis has just handed over to me. So I am the chair-elect, but elect will, after today's meeting, will get dropped and I will be the new ATJ board chair. I'm happy to say that the executive committee will be my fellow ATJ board members, Esperanza Borboa, Judge David Keenan, and Mike Chin. So that is the exciting what's coming up. But really wanted this opportunity to talk and open the floor for people to talk about the 3 people that are leaving us. And there's this imaginary Flame of Justice Award that is winging its way to Francis Adewale, to Sal Mangia, and to Miriam Munoz-Roach for all that you have done for us over combined 18 years of service, 6 years of service for each of you. So I'm going to stop talking, but I know there are people here who would like to say some words to you all, and so I'll call on folks who want to say things. Come on, don't prove me wrong, right? There are folks. Esperanza.
Okay, I did not want to go first. I wanted somebody else to go first. So is there somebody else that would like to go first before I say anything? Please, because I know that you all have something to say. And I know you're not shy because I've been in these meetings with you, so come on. Okay. Oh, Cesar.
Well, I didn't want to go first either, and I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think it goes without saying that it's really hard to imagine the ATJ board at this point in time without the 3 of you, and Sal, of course, long before his work when he was president of the bar and his embrace of the access to justice community with his leading the bar was just a real turning point. And I can't say enough about the importance of your leadership at that time. And even as important as that was, the fact that you have continued and you went on the ATJ board and you've continued to bring the energy and enthusiasm and passion that comes from the work that you do in your firm and leading work at your firm for our client communities is just really an incredible example. And from my perspective, I know you're not leaving the community, but certainly this formal role, but this is way more than 6 years. I think it truly is a lifetime dedication that we've all been sharing in and benefiting from. I don't know if Miriam was the first community member that was voted onto the ATJ board. I believe she was. And I was really thrilled to have the opportunity for NJP to, well, not only NJP, but NJP and NERP and her embrace of the programs and the connections that were made with you, with your organization. And again, someone steeped in direct person-to-person services to some of the most marginalized and vulnerable folks in our community. It was a tremendous experience for my staff, and I think that there was a tremendous benefit that flowed all from that, from your relationship and the importance of having you be the person that led the way in terms of having community involvement and participation. So it's just, again, really an incredible opportunity that I feel privileged to have had, and that I think the whole community also benefited from. And Francis, I don't know, what's there to say about Francis? Oh my God. Leading the charge in Spokane on so many levels, and steering us through these 2 years. really in awe of the work, again, on the ground and in your leadership and vision. And it's unfortunate with these last few years and the remote nature of it, really have missed the opportunity and the ability to just enjoy the company of all of you, but certainly I have missed Francis quite a lot. So thank you all so much. As I said, I'm personally feel quite enriched from having you all been part of our community and in that way, and certainly my life as well for the last few years.
Thank you, Cesar. Other folks who would like to chime in about our board members who are leaving us, but they're never that far from our grasp. Sal, Miria, Francis. All right, Esperanza, it looks like.
Okay, so this one's for real. I want to start with Miria, and I was really happy when I came on the board in 2018 to see that there was a community representative on the board, and that Miria was working so closely with the community and challenging and bringing questions and asking, well, why aren't we doing this? And shouldn't we be talking about this? And we never brought this up. And I think that's the benefit and the value of having somebody that's tied to the community so intimately that we are held accountable. And as her work, as she became more aware of who is this Access to Justice Board, she connected with other organizations, as I said, with NJP, with NERP, and with others to find out what is everybody else doing. Oh, there's this organization and that organization, and started making those connections so that the people that worked with her organization started to get to know that there was this structure that, yeah, there's a legal structure, but there was also this other structure that existed of people who were trying to connect the community to, but just weren't sure how. So this is our link. This was our link. And so you were kind of a little bit of a pioneer, Miria. You don't even know that, probably. Don't think of yourself that way, but I want to thank you for that. And for the many conversations you and I have had. I really appreciate that. It made me question a lot of things, and the two of us look for answers, and I appreciated those times. And Sal, I got to know you as the board chair of the ATJ board. And I was so impressed at how you ran a meeting and how you stuck to Robert's rules. And but the thing that really got me is your leadership was unquestionable. It was the conference, the Access to Justice conference that year, that first year that that I was actually at ELAB. I was so impressed by everything. And I actually equated that to your leadership, because I think that's really important to do. Yes, there was a committee and there was all of that. However, there was, you have to have somebody that's kind of leading the charge and letting things happen or reining things in or what have you. And so I saw you as that person, and learning more and more about you, about your background, about what you do. Yes, you're in a law firm, but you also are very tied to the community, and it's very important. And you do some big things in the community where you make visible the civil legal aid and what is being done outside of what people think of the normal courts, to bring people some awareness and the help that they need. So you definitely are a champion for those that are least represented, who are most affected by the decisions made in our legal system. So for that, I thank you. And Francis, we got to know each other, I think, during the time the state plan was getting put together. And I was in those meetings, and you and Ada wanted to know, who's that person on the phone? Who's that? And you were talking about me, and we're curious. And so I really liked, there was meetings we were in where you would say something and I go, oh my God, who is this guy? And we just started to connect because of the, of basically how we viewed the world, right? And how we, I think everyone here that's here sees the need for working towards justice. And so you're a champion, you're strong, you're persistent to a fault. And I should let all you know that I probably would not be on some of the committees I'm on if it wasn't for him. So anyway, thank you so much for everything. We're going to miss you on this board, but I know that we're going to keep seeing you and you're going to keep having your input, because we're not going to let you go. We're not going to let you go, Sel. Where are you? We're not going to let you go, and Maria. We're not going to let you go. We can't. You're too valuable. You're treasures, really. Thank you.
Thank you, SB. Diana.
Thanks. Well, I just wanted to share a little bit of an expression of my appreciation as one of the staff folks who support the ATJ board, and just a perspective in terms of working with volunteers, because I work with a lot of volunteers with lots of different groups. And so I could say many, many things for each one of you, which I will do at another time because we don't have enough time at today's meeting. But I was just looking at the screen of all the people who are here today for the Access to Justice Board meeting, and I'm really grateful with so many people from our Equity and Justice community here, because I see us all doing this work as sort of like tending to the garden. That's the vision I have of whether it's like tearing out the bad blackberry or planting new seeds or bringing others who haven't had an opportunity to tend to the garden. And I just think of each one of you, Maria, Francis, and Sel, as people who have, particularly on the Access to Justice Board, been toiling away at our garden and not just doing kind of the fun planting the new flowers, but really doing the stuff that maybe isn't so glamorous, like digging the ditches and pulling out the weeds. And I'm just really grateful that each one of you have committed your work to equity and justice and have really shown up, and grateful that you're on speed dial on my phone. You answer all the asks, whether it's to draft something or to review something or to and always just being champions for the work that we're all doing together. So just want to express my deep appreciation for each one of you.
Thank you, Diana. Anyone else?
I think we're out of time, Terry.
All right. Well, thank you, Francis. I do want to add, as long as we're talking about transitions, we would be remiss if we didn't observe the fact that the state of Washington lost a leader this week in Sandra Williams. And I have to say, I didn't know her personally, but I do remember her quite vividly from our 2019 Spokane ATJ conference. And so I just wanted to mention that we are all less fortunate because of that.
Thank you, Terry. And we are having a vigil for her and her partner, I believe on Tuesday next week on the 13th at 5 p.m. If you are in Spokane, please feel free to join us. She's somebody very dear to us, very dear to the Access to Justice movement. For those of you familiar with our regional planning here, everyone here cherish her. She was at our ATJ conference in Spokane, and she spoke at the last day and got everybody all fired up. We're all gonna miss her. I personally gonna miss her. She's so much to me. She taught me everything I know about community and movement lawyering. And she's such a wonderful person, even though she's not a lawyer, but she's a community activist to the letter. And she believes that access to justice should not be a slogan for an action. So thank you, everyone. We are now going to go to the next issue on the agenda, the Alliance Assessment and State Plan Next Step. SP and Michael Terrazaki, over to you too.
Yes, thank you very much, Francis. As some of you know, the DISCO went through the Delivery Systems Committee went through a process of assessing basically where we're at, what needs to be done. And I'm not going to say much about it. Michael put together a beautiful PowerPoint to be able to go through it. And so Michael, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, can hear you. Great. And so do you want to, I sent it to Bonnie, so Bonnie can either put it up or Bonnie can maybe give you permission so that you can set it up.
Yeah, I
What
think
would you
if I
prefer?
can just share it on my end, that's probably easiest.
Okay, can we
So
give
I'll
her
go ahead
permission,
and
Bonnie?
try and share my screen here.
Okay, great.
See if it
Thank you.
works.
Thank you.
All right.
And
Can we
here
see
go.
that? Great. Okay, so thank you everyone for giving us a few minutes to tell you about kind of Our Healthy Alliances assessment that we went through at the Delivery Systems Committee. I know there's some new members of the ATJ board, so we call it DISCO, the Delivery Systems Committee, if you haven't heard that before. So I'm going to be using the DISCO shortened name a lot to do this. I picked a travel themed PowerPoint template because the Healthy Alliances is really kind of one step in a long kind of planning processes. So I thought the metaphor seemed like it was there. And so I'm going to start a little bit with some kind of history and background, and then we'll go into exactly what the assessment was and what the results showed us. So I put together a quick little timeline here. This all kind of started back in 2021 when a small group of folks at DISCO were looking at perhaps revising the mission statement. It became abundantly clear pretty early on that that was kind of putting the cart before the horse, and we needed to take a look at some of the more foundational alliance documents before we started reworking kind of our DISCO mission statement. DISCO, supposed to be kind of supporting the overall vision. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but just for the sake of the timeline, we actually started working with the Healthy Alliance program in about October of 2021. Through the first half of this year, we actually performed the assessment. A bunch of people filled out, a big long online questionnaire, provided a lot of input, and we worked with a great facilitator who really reviewed the results and compiled them. We debriefed those and kind of shared them out with the DISCO group and the rest of the Alliance in early June and July. And since then, we've really been kind of seeing how those results fit into our plans and kind of what next steps would look like. And I put this note in here to remember to introduce myself. As we said, I'm Michael Terrazaki. I'm the Pro Bono Council Manager for the volunteer lawyer programs across Washington State. There's 16 of them. We cover most of the counties, and we try to work as best as we can with the other legal aid providers to ensure direct services can be, as plentiful as possible for low-income Washingtonians. I'm here today because I'm also, along with SB, the co-chair for the Delivery Systems Committee. So I actually started kind of working on the Healthy Alliances and strategic planning stuff back here, but I didn't really become a DISCO co-chair until I think early in 2022. So I've kind of had my finger on this for most of the time. So like I said, we'll start with a little bit of history, kind of how did we get to the Healthy Alliances assessment? We did send out a memo, and I'm not sure if it was in the materials for this time or the last meeting, but if anyone hasn't seen it, maybe we can recirculate it. There's a lot more detail in there. But very briefly, we were looking at the mission statement, like I mentioned, and we came to the conclusion that really what we probably needed was to revisit the hallmarks. And what are the hallmarks? They're a unifying set of visions and values that guide the Alliance as we work to expand meaningful access to the civil justice system and to identify and eliminate barriers that deny justice to perpetuate poverty, is what we say they are. They're basically a list, a bullet point list of different kind of tenets and principles that we use to try and guide, our work in our legal aid organizations. The hallmarks are kind of old. I guess the last revision was in 2014, and a lot has changed in the last 2 years, not to mention the last 8 years. So when we were looking at maybe revisiting them, we want to make sure that they're up to date and relevant. I think we have a lot of new tools and lenses through which to view things now that we didn't 2 or 8 years ago. And we want to make sure that any new kind of foundational documents we have are really, involve community input and client input. So that brings us to kind of what our plan was initially before we got involved with the Healthy Alliances survey. We were going to basically do a lot of stakeholder kind of analysis and outreach, create a working group. And this is still mostly the plan, but hopefully have a coordinator come in to get some regional brainstorming and some client input and community input, and then have that coordinator help us with drafting new hallmarks. The goal is to have kind of our hallmarks process help inform and build some infrastructure for an eventual refresh of the state plan. And so the Healthy Alliances assessment really kind of fits in right in this initial stakeholder kind of analysis section right here. Right. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the Healthy Alliances section, because that's what I'm really here to talk about. But I just wanted to make sure I gave a little bit of background, because there really is a lot of, there was a lot of process that led up to us even getting involved in this. So the Healthy Alliances survey, what actually is it? Well, like I said, it was kind of a long multiple choice questionnaire. And it also had a lot of free response kind of boxes in which you could put in an answer. We had a very good turnout as far as participation. We tried to get every DISCO member to have an executive director or executive leadership person, as well as a normal or frontline staff person or a core staff person fill out the survey. So that would be hopefully 2 people from every organization. And the questions covered a wide variety of different things. These are kind of the subject headings, and under each of these, I think there were 10 or 12 different questions. Our goal kind of was to find out whether the members understood kind of a shared purpose, how aligned everyone was on different issues, and also to even just solicit some feedback on some basic things like how are our communications working, how do people understand our decision-making structures, how, what parts of our culture support or hinder our work. We do want to note that this is kind of an off-the-shelf product. So this wasn't a custom created survey just for our Alliance for Equal Justice or just for DISCO. So there's some benefits to that. It was accessible, and our facilitator had a lot of experience working with it. But some of the drawbacks is that, all alliances are not the same. So all the questions, as you'll see later when we're reviewing some of the answers, are not necessarily relevant to our specific alliance. There are a lot of alliances that are groups of organizations trying to push a specific legislative or policy goal. We're obviously less focused, and we're more, in the legal aid arena, all trying to help our clients as best we can, using some shared principles and values. So not all of the results we get are exactly on point, and not all of the questions are necessarily relevant. But I don't think that doesn't mean it's not a good tool, and you'll see. So we got some very, very good feedback. So what did we learn from our Healthy Alliances? Our goal for this, and like I mentioned, we do eventually want to get to the point where we have a coordinator doing some real outreach and making sure we're getting the perspectives that are not included in this Healthy Alliances assessment. But the goal was to really take the temperature of kind of the stakeholders that we already have, the current core Alliance members that are members and participants in DISCO, to see kind of where we are and make sure that, if we're going to keep going in one direction, another direction, where we're all aligned. And one of the things that we got back was kind of a list of our areas of strength and our areas of weakness. As I mentioned, not all of these are necessarily relevant to our specific alliance, but on the top 10 list, I highlighted this alliance meetings as one of our strengths. I think that's really, really great for us, to know, and for me as a DISCO co-chair to know. And I think the ATJ board and the DISCO meetings are really seen as really valuable. I think that kind of confirmed that. And all of these results, I think there's a link in the materials for today that if you want to take a deep dive into all of the results and all the comments that received, take some time to do that. It's I think it's like 40 or 60 pages. So I'm just throwing in some highlights here today. They also noted areas of growth, and this was one of the kind of results slides that we received. And I think it's pretty illustrative of a lot of the kind of the narrative comments we got. Division of labor and accountability. We had a lot of feedback that there's some confusion about roles, things that need to be clarified on who gets to make decisions, why they get to make decisions, who should have input in different spheres and in different committees. And also grassroots engagement came up. One thing that surfaced that I think is mentioned in some of the narrative comments that I'm going to show later also is that there's some confusion about, well, who is the community, who should be in the community? Are we trying to work within the system to improve the system? Are we trying to redo the system so it can be more fair and serve our community better? So grassroots engagement is another thing that we, a lot of our organizations individually have a ton of outreach in whatever way they do it. But as far as DISCO itself, I mean, we don't do a ton of that community input, and maybe that's something we need to try and do more of. So just highlighting some broad kind of things and that we found out here. We also got, like I mentioned, a lot of these kind of narrative, I guess the title says in your own words, but these aren't necessarily direct quotes that we received back, but instead are kind of common themes that the facilitator saw popping up in a lot of the comments. So some of the strengths people saw were the access to justice, kind of our principles, and things like the state plan, dedication and strong commitment to the work. I can let you read these through on your own time if you're interested, but maybe it's the next one. Here it is. Yeah, mission, vision, and state plan. I still hear from people that they appreciate the state plan, that it exists, that it's something they can rely on. And I know it's kind of on hold, and eventually we'll probably get to refreshing it, but I think that's one of our big strengths. And here, as far as areas for growth, again, decision-making power dominated by one or a few larger agencies. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. A big one just being capacity. A lot of smaller organizations can't send a dedicated individual to DISCO every month or the ATJ board every month to keep track and provide input. Role confusion is one that I'll talk a little more about. We heard from a lot of folks that, like I said, people aren't sure when they're allowed to speak up at meetings, who is a voting member of different committees. And a lot of that, I think, comes from just the fact that the kind of alliance and all of our systems are set up kind of not by happenstance, but as a result of the way kind of history played out over the last 10 or 20 years. So we're actually going to be doing a, actually, I'll go ahead and use the next slide. So addressing the roles confusion, I think we're actually going to do kind of a Alliance 101 trainings, and we're going to make sure we get that information out so folks can really have a better idea of why the system is the way it is, really whose role it is to run different meetings, why certain people get to be in different positions. And I think that hopefully the better people can really understand our Alliance, the more engaged they can be, in the more participation we can have there. So that's an ongoing project that we've got. We'll hopefully have that training coming out in fall or early winter. I think it'll be really good, just so everyone has the information, but also because I think it'll really allow us to see where we are, so we can decide if that's the way we really want it to be. If we want to change something one way or another, at least we know where we're starting from. Moving forward, also, as I mentioned, the hallmarks are still hopefully something we can revisit. This is a huge lift for a volunteer group. So like I mentioned, we're really hoping we can have a coordinator to really make this drive the process. Hopefully we could get that done in a number of months. If it's volunteer driven, I have a feeling it'll stretch on for years. So renewed hallmarks can really help us guide all the rest of our work. And finally, of course, further down the line, we will need to revisit the state plan, or at least extend it for a little longer. Like I mentioned, people really do rely on the state plan. So I think eventually it is going to be important that we make sure we revisit that and make sure it's up to date and has the things that we, and more importantly, community and our clients really need in it. So thank you. I just talked a lot for about 12 minutes. I tried to keep it as brief as possible, so I probably skipped a lot. I'm happy to answer any questions, or please feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions there. And then SB, I don't know, did you have anything else to add? I kind of blew through that pretty quickly.
No, that was the whole point when you and I talked last week. So is to be able to get this. So I think opening it up we have a couple of minutes if anybody has a question. But this won't be the last time you hear about this. We've got a lot of work to do. Anyone? Okay. Back to you, Francis.
Thank you. I just want to say one quick thing before we leave this issue. I want to acknowledge the contribution of LFW in helping us to get the funding for this step of the work. I'm really grateful. I remember Diana and I having a meeting with Caitlin, literally begging to say, look, we need this work done. We don't have any funding to be able to do it. And she said, oh, forget about it. We can get it done. And this is an important work. And I really want to acknowledge that this is how collaboration works, to be able to get things like this done. And I'm so grateful that this is the first step in the long line, in the journey to our state plan. And I'm grateful for everyone that has pitched in, Michael and everyone with ideas about how to move this forward, especially members of DISCO. I see Merv. This is the crystallization of all the hard work over the years. Thank you. And this is just the first step. I hope it continues. Now we're going to go to EJC update. Alexandra, over to you, DS.
Hi. Hi, everyone. So for those of you,
You're facing up,
Francis. Oh, can you hear me?
Francis, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Alexander.
Thank you. So for those of you I still haven't had a chance to meet, I'm Alex, the new Communications and Advocacy Director for the EJC and LFW. I took over this role about 3 months ago, so I've spent that time getting to know the directors of our legal aid programs and learning more about the EJC's advocacy role. So I have a couple of quick updates to share. On the King County funding side, we've been working with legal aid programs that receive funding from the King County General Fund to ensure that King County continues its longstanding commitment to support the legal aid infrastructure locally and ensure that it can remain sustainable. As we've done in the past, we're trying to have our partners, NERP, Team Child, Solid Ground, ELAP, BLC, and ULP come together to meet with King County Council members. So those meetings have started already, and we have a bunch coming up this month. On the state funding side, we're currently working with OCLA, the Pro Bono Council, and NJP to continue to understand how the EJC can support OCLA's budget request. And then on the federal funding side, we don't have a big update, but We are beginning to plan for the DC trip next year. So that'll happen at the end of March for the American Bar Association Day. And I believe it's March 28th and 29th. So stay tuned for more updates related to that. And yeah, that's kind of all I have to share right now. So let me know if you have any questions and feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you. Any question for Alex? All right. Now we go to funding report. Cesar, federal funding report.
Hi, everyone. The Federal Legal Services Corporation appropriation for 2023 has sort of moved along as far as it can go at this point. The House voted $675 million, which is the highest level ever provided for legal services. It was more than they voted for this year, but of course that didn't happen. The Senate came in at $539 million as their proposed spending level, which would be an increase, a good increase based on what the current funding. But there is already Senator Schumer basically informed the Congress, informed the public that at this point, their goal is to have a continuing resolution through mid-December, which basically, because the federal fiscal year starts October 1st, it basically says they don't see a way to pass a federal budget before September 30th or by September 30th. And at this point, funding will be flat starting in the new federal fiscal year. As I've reported before, last year we thought, given the various proposals in the House and Senate, we anticipated a much higher increase for legal services than was in fact the case. The funding level is 489, and that was a very slight increase. For our purposes, we are planning on basically having a very small, flat to small increase next year and hope for the best. It's a little unclear just whatever happens with the November elections. Obviously, there's very possible huge impact. So stay tuned and hang on to your seats because it's going to be a very consequential election. I am traveling this week. There is the Legal Services Corporation is holding a conference for executive directors, and I'm going to be meeting with some of our congressional delegation to thank them for their continued support and try to get them to continue to prioritize funding for federal civil legal aid.
Thank you, Cesar. Any question for Cesar? Any comment for Cesar? All right, Jim, over to you, state funding report.
Got to get off of mute. Thank you. Before I address the state funding reports, allow me to first, as I've been doing all week, share in the grief over the loss of Sandy Williams. And I will actually get to see you in a week and a half or so, Francis, when we're there, and meet with other members of the community that's been so devastated. Also to say my thanks. I'm not going to repeat anything that anybody else has said, but say my thanks to the three people who have given so much of their time and talent to the ATJ Board and the Alliance over these past 6 years. I did send out and asked Bonnie to send out, and she did send out a very brief memo outlining where OCLA is in the development of its budget. requests for next year. Our budget requests are due for submission to the governor's office toward the end of this month. We will have a meeting of the Civil Legal Aid Oversight Committee on the 23rd, and the substance of that meeting will be limited to consideration, review, and hopefully endorsement by the Oversight Committee of our budget requests. They are, as I have suggested, they would likely be relatively limited in scope. The goal here is to maintain what we have with one minor adjustment, carry forward funding commitments that were provided to us on a one-time basis, and just essentially move forward on those projects that the legislature has assigned to us, particularly the Children's Representation Implementation Plan, which is by statute, we have to bring on X number of counties every year. This year, we have to bring on 8 counties, starting July 1st with 3. We went live with 3. We have to bring on 5 more counties in January 1st, and then we bring a succession of counties thereafter every January. We are asking for 2 small requests in the supplemental budget. These are essentially to cover expenditures that we are obligated to make in both the RTC eviction context and the Children's Representation Implementation context. I don't see that we're going to have any difficulty with the legislature on that, but we have to make those requests. Otherwise, we will overspend our budget by those amounts. For FY 24-25, we are going to ask the legislature for the funding above carry forward to take the next steps in implementation. We will add cohorts 2, 3, and 4 during county cohorts 2, 3, and 4 during that period of time. We will also be implementing what we anticipate to be a new set of standards for legal representation, practice, caseload, and training standards. Those are being presented and will be decided upon by the Supreme Court's Commission on Children in Foster Care next Monday. It's been an extensive, inclusive process with the voices at the table, particularly voices from those who are most directly affected, youth who are in the foster care system or are alumni of the foster care system. We are also working with our colleagues at the Office of Public Defense to secure a vendor rate adjustment or a compensation adjustment for our children's contractors. We are 40% below on average the fully loaded cost, the comparable fully loaded cost for attorneys at the Office of the Attorney General. Our attorneys are expected to run an entire law firm, including all the expenditures associated with the same, and hopefully have a little bit of money left over, and current compensation rates fall well below our ability to do that. So we and OPD is in the same place. So we and OPD are asking the legislature to commit to a 4-year effort to bring us into comparability so that we can compete for lawyers. We don't compete with one another for lawyers, and we don't compete with our friends south of the border in Oregon, where they pay $250,000 for a fully loaded attorney. We are asking for the money necessary to continue full implementation of the Right to Counsel program for indigent tenants. It's an appointed counsel program. It's the only one in the country, and we're making tremendous progress. We are asking for continuation of a one-time appropriation of funding for legal assistance and support for tenants who are threatened with eviction, but who have not yet had cases commenced against them. And included in that is a small amount to ensure that the eviction defense screening line has capacity to provide information assistance and referral for tenants who may not qualify for right to counsel, but who are calling the eviction defense screening line in large measure because the legislature told them to, for a whole range of legal problems associated with their tenancies. We are asking the legislature for a vendor rate adjustment to protect the current footprint of the basic civil legal aid system. That includes NJP. It also includes an adjustment for the organizations that are funded through a subcontract between NJP and LFW and then are supported directly by LFW. That's the 16 pro bonos and 4 specialized legal aid providers. And then we are asking for a 2-year extension of funding, which was provided on a one-time basis for civil legal assistance to people eligible for relief, whether vacation of convictions or LFO refunds, appropriate LFO refunds. And so that's about $4.7 million, $4.8 million. We're asking, that was provided on a one-time basis to us, and all the other Blake-related entities that got funding on a one-time basis in the supplemental. And so we're all asking for carry forward at least into the next 2 years. As you can see, when you add all this stuff up, it's not small. Our carry forward numbers going into fiscal year 2024, according to the Office of Financial Management, are $98 million. The supplemental is going to cost us $1.225 million, and all of the others together are going to cost over $25 million, which is, as you can see, 26.3% above carry forward level. It's going to be a huge and heavy lift. During the course of the budget consideration and development process, we did ask members of the community to provide input. We got excellent input from a number of members. There was a strong desire for an increase in general legal aid funding. When we look at those numbers, we just can't, and we look at the state of the fiscal condition of the state, the exhaustion of the federal funds, the legislature and budget writers' concerns about possible downturn, which we saw a little bit of indication in the economic and revenue forecast report that came out earlier this week. We just think it's going to be really hard just to keep what we have and maintain critical capacity and address legislative mandates. And so we did not include that. I have said this in the past. If others wish to seek and secure additional basic field legal aid funding, we certainly would welcome that, but we just can't originate the ask. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Any question, comment for Jim? Okay, go ahead, Cesar.
Jim, just a real quick question. I'm sorry, I keep losing track of this. What is the, I understood at some point during the various conversations that the COVID funding would be rolled into the basic appropriation as a sort of a continuing add-on, if you will. Has that changed? Is that still the case?
Yeah, COVID funding. Yeah, COVID funding was appropriated on a declining basis. Year one was 6 million. Year two, which is this year, is 5 million. It will turn into continuing funding at the 3 million per year level, but it will no longer be designated as COVID funding.
So the carry forward if you will, for basic Okla funding is whatever the current amount is this year plus the 3 that will be
Oh, it's a
COVID.
very, very, very complicated spreadsheet. I don't think you want me to go into it here.
Okay.
Happy to talk to you off books.
All right. I just wanted to understand that there would be, I understood there would be
There, it's
continuity
there.
and I wasn't sure. Yeah.
3 million a year is there as part of our base.
Great. Thank you.
Any other question or comment for Jim? I just want to acknowledge my friend Antonio Ginata that is here. Good to see you again. Thank you. One of the things that is a public knowledge now because it's on TVW, the ATJ board met with the Supreme Court yesterday. One of the things that I argued and I begged everyone watching this, whether on Facebook page or on YouTube, is please, we are asking you to advocate for civil legal aid funding with your legislator. This is a biennial year, and this is very important. This work can only be done if it's funded, and we need funding for civil legal aid. And so I just want to throw that appeal. If you're watching this on YouTube, please contact your local legislators and advocate for civil legal aid funding. We need your voice at the table. This program is meant to help the poor in our state, and this is the work that we do every day, to advocate for, to give voice to those who do not have voice to the voiceless, as Sal put it yesterday. Okay, thank you. Jim?
Francis, one comment on that, and thank you for the opportunity. It's really easy, I think, for people to pick and choose or cherry pick the components of the Okla budget requests that they wish to support. But I just want to make it very clear that 100% of this is civil legal aid. Whether you're a foster kid in the child welfare system, whether you're a tenant being evicted, whether you're a consumer in need of consumer assistance, and on and on and on. And I would encourage people to generally support the funding requests for civil legal aid and not try and pick and choose between them in their messaging.
Thank you. That is very important, and I appreciate that. I got a note, a WhatsApp text today from someone in Southwestern Washington, Vancouver to be specific, who was so grateful that he's able to get assistance with the struggle with this particular issue. And it's so very important to have somebody to stand by your side as you fight the system, quote and unquote, that you fight the injustice that is in the system. This is very important. And I'm messaging not to you people on the screen, but for those who are going to be watching this on YouTube. So thank you so much for every assistance we could get. Thank you. Now we go to Legal Foundation of Washington reports. Caitlin, I don't see Caitlin here. Cara, is Caitlin coming? Does anybody know?
I have not spoken with her, so I don't know. I think I saw Emily from
yes,
Foundation on, and I don't know if Emily's going to give a report.
Emily, are you giving the report? I know Natalia is on our way, is either on our way to Spokane or is already here. Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, everyone. I can give a brief report for LFW, including the campaign. Everyone should mark their calendars for our in-person Gold Mark luncheon, which is planned for February 17th, 2023 at the Westin in Seattle. Also, we recently received letters of interest for our accelerator grant program, which is a relaunch of what used to be called one-year special grants. So we had some really exciting proposals come in through there. Our grants committee is reviewing those as we speak. We received over 2.5 million in requests That's 28 applications or LOIs. With that process, folks are going to be invited to move to the next stage later this month. So if you're an organization that applied for that, you will hear from us on September 23rd. I'm going to put a little information in the chat about that grant opportunity. It's pretty exciting and something new. There we go. These are one-time grants designed to accelerate time-sensitive civil justice work and launch impactful projects. So keep an eye on that, and we should have announcements of those grant awards in November. Something else I wanted to share is we have updated our website to include an overview of our equitable grant-making practices. We've also met with all partnership grantees one-on-one to talk these over, but we are sharing it publicly now on our site. So I've included that in the chat as well. And other than that, I can tell you that, as you have probably heard, the Fed has been raising interest rates. Banks are always very hesitant to raise their own rates. So our team is working hard to nudge is maybe too light of a word, but strongly nudge those banks to get rates increased. We're seeing some very small increases now, but we have a plan in place to get those numbers higher. So we're not seeing the increase in IOLTA revenue yet at this stage, but we're optimistic that that's going to continue to increase as we work with the banks to get those interest rates higher. Other than that, I don't have any other updates, but I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has anything for LFW.
I don't have a question. Thanks, Emily. I was just going to add that LFW released our 2021 annual report this week, so you might have gotten an email, I think on yesterday. I will put the link to that in the chat. That's it though. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question or comment for LFW or Campaign for Equal Justice? All right. The big announcement, I believe Terry still there? The big announcement is regards to the conference. Go ahead, Terry. You make the big announcement.
The dates are on the agenda at the bottom of the or the top of the next page. Is that the Access to Justice 2023 conference will be in person at the Tacoma Convention Center on September 28th to 30th. Mark your calendar. And we have been asked to plan for some kind of hybrid. We are considering what that might be, and more news to follow on that. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Any other announcement for the good of the order? Okay, Cindy, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know, Lily sent out an email to the ATJ listserv, but the Evening with Equal Justice is back in person at Seattle U Law on October 18th from 5:30 to roughly 7:30. And registration is going to be opening later this month. So please make sure that your organizations are represented for internship opportunities in the summer. And thanks again to everybody. It's been wonderful working with you. I hope to still stick around in this community and work with you all in the future.
Thank you, Cindy. We will miss you, but at least you're still going to be around. Thank you. Emily, go ahead.
I forgot to mention, we have a number of Beer and Justice events coming up. So I don't want Natalia to be mad at me for not mentioning these. We've got Spokane next week, September 14th. Hope to see everyone there. We've got Yakima, October 7th, and Olympia on October 14th. So please support those events, spread them in your networks, and get the word out. They're going to be a lot of fun. So we're excited to have some great speakers and large crowds and lots of donations.
Behind Justice is the fundraising effect. It's a fundraising opportunity for you to be able to give to the campaign for equal justice. And
Yes.
thank you. All right, Merv.
Yeah, hey, everybody. We have our Imagine Justice Week coming up the week of September 19th. We're doing 2 panels, which I think will be great. I put the link in the chat. You need to register, but it's free. Tuesday, September 20th at 6 is Immigrant Workers Building Collective Power. I'm really excited. It's going to be our first panel that is in Spanish, interpreted into English. So we're hoping that folks will attend that. And then on Thursday, September 22nd, is Imagining the End of Incarceration. And that is also free. And we have a youth art celebration. So if you know young artists, today is the last day to submit work, and hope to see you at the panels. Thanks.
Thank you. Cesar, Jubilee for Justice.
That's it. Jubilee for Justice, Together for Justice, September 29th, 6 p.m. I put the link for registration on the chat. Please register. It is going to be a combined in-person and hybrid event, so that we have an opportunity to allow folks from around the state to participate as well, which is something that we've learned from the pandemic, that we can actually do this and have folks be in person and also participate for wherever they might be.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Cesar.
you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? George Anderson, anything from DMCJA?
I do not have anything to add, but I do want to say thank you for your service as president or chair of this organization. You've done a wonderful job. And for anyone that doesn't know this, I've known Francis for many, 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 many years. And I think he was one of our first graduates of the Leadership Institute with the Bar Association. So thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. I'm giving you back 8 minutes of your time. This is my gift to you. Terry will be here next month for this meeting, and have a good and wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you,
Francis.
Thank you.